Imagine sitting beside someone every day, and no matter how hard you look, their face simply doesn't exist. Yo, Manga Offload here, and today we're diving into the story of a boy and his faceless classmate. And trust me, it's as weird as it sounds. So the story kicks off with our MC, Mizuno, laying on his desk, internally whining about the new classmate he just can't deal with. Thanks to a seat shuffle, she ends up right next to him. Sounds normal, right? Well, nope. This classmate greets him, and she just so happens to be a girl with no face. Mizuno calls her a faceless ghost, and honestly, that's the perfect description. He immediately screams, but the girl? She just stands there watching like it's nothing. Mizuno tries to tell her to quit messing with him, but she refuses, all playful, while he's dying inside. Turns out her name is Kotoha Wakao, and yeah, she's actually faceless, but only to Mizuno. Everyone else? They see her normally. Already, that's one of the big mysteries of this manga. What's wild is that Wakao admits that she uses Mizuno's face as a reference for her own expressions. She even compliments him for being interesting and straight up asks if he could cry for her so she can copy his crying face. Like, girl, what? Mizuno, of course, flips out and refuses. Meanwhile, his classmates in the back are whispering how beautiful Wakao is, totally jealous that Mizuno gets to sit next to her. That's when you realize this guy is literally the only one cursed to see her like some Slender Man knockoff. The classmates also notice how Wakao's behavior has changed. Before, she always looked blank and creepy, but after moving seats, she's suddenly more animated. They wonder if something happened, but obviously they don't connect it to Mizuno. Mizuno, meanwhile, is just annoyed, thinking about how she keeps calling his face great reference material. Then Wakao casually stretches, says the warm classroom feels like spring, and suddenly switches gears, telling Mizuno about how she bumped into someone the other day, but when she turned to apologize, they were gone. Then she hits him with, "Do you think ghosts exist?" Like, imagine being asked that by someone who literally looks like a ghost. No wonder Mizuno's creeped out. Later in class, Mizuno is struggling to stay awake during a boring lecture. Wakao warns him about sleeping, pokes his desk to keep him awake, and says she'll give him something stimulating. He's had enough, reaches for his pen, and accidentally grabs her finger. And here's the twist. She instantly pulls her hand back, but for a split second, Mizuno actually sees her real face. She's flustered, blushing, and for the first time, it's revealed. Mizuno freaks out, shouting that he saw it, and begging her to show it again. But just as fast, she morphs right back into her faceless form. Poor guy is left screaming in terror. Of course, the teacher calls him out, so he blames it on a bug. Classic. Wakao just laughs, teasing him, and here's the kicker. One of her big mysteries is that she can show her face, but only sometimes. Chapter 2 begins with Mizuno internally complaining about not getting a clear view of Wakao's face the other day because he was too drowsy. He desperately wants to see it again. After all, he always thought she was completely faceless. Mizuno reasons that since Wakao is always staring him dead in the face, it should be fine if he does the same. As he wonders how to sneak a peek, he comes up with a theory. There must be some condition for her face to appear. Based on what happened last time, he concludes that physical contact might be the trigger. But there's a problem. There's no way he can just ask a girl to let him touch her. Just the thought of saying it out loud makes him sound like a pervert, and he knows it would definitely creep her out. So, he comes up with a few strategies. Plan 1. Trick Wakao into looking at a cat outside and then sneak his finger closer while she's distracted. But before he even has a chance, Wakao suddenly headbutts him, causing the first plan to fail spectacularly. Plan 2. Another simple idea. During dodgeball, he kicks the ball her way. When she picks it, he'll just claim it's his and grab it back. The plan looks like it might work until Mizuno gets knocked out cold by a dodgeball. Another failure. Back in class, Mizuno ponders his humiliating attempts but refuses to give up. He sets up Plan 3. This time, he accidentally drops his eraser on the floor. When Wakao bends down to pick it up, Mizuno smirks, convinced this plan has the highest chance of success. He knows how shady it looks. He even admits it makes him sound like a pervert, and he knows it would definitely creep her out. Still, Wakao casually drops the eraser back on his desk, completely ignoring his outstretched hand. Mizuno is crushed by the awkwardness of yet another failure. Before he can stew in his disappointment, Wakao asks him what he was doing that morning, because it looks like he hasn't turned in his handout. Mizuno suddenly realizes that not only have all his plans failed, but he also forgot to finish the assignment. Wakao asks him if he can still get it done in time, but Mizuno admits he's stuck on a word in the second question, one that isn't even in the textbook. Wakao tells him it's there, just written in small letters on the next page. She points it out in her own book, but Mizuno can't see it clearly, so he leans in closer. And then it happens. Wakao's flustered face appears again, but Mizuno, too focused on the textbook, doesn't notice. Embarrassed, Wakao shoves the book into his face. Mizuno yelps in pain, but suddenly realizes physical contact just happened. He whips his head around, hoping to catch another glimpse of her face, only to be disappointed. She's faceless once again. Mizuno starts to doubt his theory, wondering if maybe there is no real condition to reveal her face. And as for the handout, yeah, he never finishes it. So, Chapter 3 kicks off with Wakao telling Mizuno that she wants to do something that screams youth, something exciting. She explains that this is why she's been observing him all this time, leaving Mizuno completely shocked. Wakao continues, saying it's easier to fully experience youth with someone like him. Mizuno asks why, and she simply points at him, telling him to think about it. Then she launches into a whole yap session about all the things you can do as a student. School clubs, school events, and so much more. She doesn't want to waste a single second. She wants to feel every emotion to the max, both the good and the bad. But here's her problem. She sucks at being emotional. That's where Mizuno comes in, with his over-the-top reactions to everything. Mizuno thinks she must be messing with him, but Wakao ignores that and keeps going, saying it's hard to choose what to do first. She reminds him that their time is limited and asks for his suggestions. After thinking for a minute, Mizuno suggests the classic manga trope, having lunch on the roof. Wakao loves the idea. Immediately after class is dismissed, she bolts up from her seat, startling Mizuno, and dashes off to the roof in fear someone might take her spot. Left alone, Mizuno just thinks about how energetic she is. But not even a minute later, Wakao comes zooming back. She gets right in Mizuno's face and announces that the roof was locked. Mizuno screams in terror, while Wakao slumps to the floor, glooming over the fact that eating on the roof is only possible in manga. Mizuno notices how upset she is. As she keeps sulking, Mizuno comes up with a solution. He tells her to follow him, and soon they're standing outside. Wakao can't help but compliment the environment, surprised Mizuno knows a place like this. He explains that he passes through here whenever he's on cleaning duty and has to take out the trash. Hearing that, Wakao reignites with joy, because to her, eating lunch in the school garden feels just as youthful. Mizuno's glad she likes it. She thanks him for showing her the spot, calling him kind, and says she'll eat here from now on. Then she asks if he'd like to join her, since going back to class would just be a pain. He accepts and sits opposite her. As Mizuno rips open the wrapper of his onigiri, he realizes something. Lately, he's been able to guess what Wakao is feeling even though he can't read her face. But then another thought hits him. How does Wakao even eat? He's never seen it before, since she always went off by herself during lunch. He turns, desperate to get a glimpse of her face, but can't see anything. She's facing the other way. He knows he can't just lean in front of her. Before he can think further, Wakao asks him what he's eating. He tells her 2 onigiri and a croquette. The two of them start talking about how good convenience store onigiri are. Wakao then says how fun eating outside is, how it feels like a picnic. Mizuno blurts out that just a few minutes ago she was heartbroken about not being able to eat on the roof. Wakao admits she's still upset about that, but she's also happy, especially because she's eating outside with Mizuno. That statement stuns him. Both of them start blushing. And as they do, Wakao's face slowly begins to take form. Mizuno leans in, about to see it clearly, when his onigiri slips from his hand and drops to the ground. He screams, and Wakao's face immediately morphs back into faceless mode. Mizuno is devastated. Not only did he lose his chance, but also his onigiri. "Bro, just pick it up, it's not that serious." Wakao laughs, teasing him about how funny he is and saying she never gets tired of watching him. Mizuno, slightly annoyed, tells her not to kick a man while he's down. To show her generosity, Wakao offers him some of her lunch. Mizuno gratefully accepts. The next chapter begins with a single remark from the school principal that sets off a school-wide clean-a-thon. Classes divide themselves into 6 groups, each tasked with different areas to clean. For Mizuno's group, though, 3 out of the 6 members ditch from the start, leaving him, Wakao, and some random background character to carry the load. Mizuno looks irritated as someone points out how dirty the windows are and asks him to clean them. He accepts without much fuss. As he soaks the rag in the bucket, he can't help but think about how people who actually give a damn always end up putting up with this kind of crap. Still, he tries to look on the bright side. It's not the first time this has happened to him. But just as he's monologuing, Wakao suddenly appears beside him, making him scream. She laughs, complimenting his screaming face. She also remarks that she didn't think he'd be so surprised by what she said. But honestly, that's not what scared Mizuno. He gives another quick reminder about Wakao, how she's only faceless to him, and how he's tried all sorts of things to see her real face, all ending in failure. Still determined, Mizuno thinks there has to be a way to get her to reveal it. Then he overhears some students chatting outside and suddenly gets an idea. He asks Wakao if there's someone she looks like, reasoning that this way he could at least get a general idea of her appearance. Wakao, puzzled, asks why. Mizuno explains that someone once told him he looked like a trending celebrity, and that's why he was wondering if maybe the same happened to her. Surprisingly, she says yes, she looks like her cat. Mizuno, confused, tells her he meant a person, not an animal. Wakao thinks for a moment, then says people often tell her she looks exactly like her mom. Mizuno grows frustrated, convinced she's dodging his attempts to get a clue. Before things can drag on, a classmate shows up and tells Mizuno their teacher is looking for him to fetch the soap. Mizuno leaves, and Wakao waves him off. As he walks away, Wakao notices 3 guys walking in, the same slackers who ditched cleaning earlier. They complain about the clean-a-thon, calling it an abuse of power. One of them asks Wakao if she agrees. She replies that she doesn't mind. The guy laughs, saying she doesn't have to lie, that she's allowed to complain. But Wakao wasn't lying. Then things turn sour. One of them says they could just leave everything to Mizuno, since he'd probably finish anything left undone. They double down, adding that if they stay, they'd only get in his way, and they actually thank God for people like Mizuno. But then Wakao starts laughing, confusing them. She proceeds to scold them, calling the 3 shameless for using getting in his way as an excuse. Her words terrified him. Only God knows what her face looks like in that moment. Even Yamamoto, the other classmate still helping, looks shaken. The scene shifts to Mizuno walking down the hallway. He realizes maybe he doesn't need to ask Wakao what she looks like. He could just ask his classmate, Yamamoto. He spots Wakao and asks what she's doing. She's surprised by how quickly he came back and tells him she's going to wash her hands. Mizuno apologizes for stopping her, but just then, her real face appears again. With a calm expression, she tells him that taking everything seriously is one of his strengths. Then she zooms off, leaving Mizuno stunned. When he returns to the classroom, Mizuno is shocked to see the three slackers actually cleaning. One of them even compliments him for doing the heavy lifting and insists Mizuno leave the rest to them. Suspicious, but not overthinking it, Mizuno turns to Yamamoto and casually asks who he thinks Wakao looks like. Yamamoto replies, "A bear." Mizuno can't help but think Wakao must be a carnivore. Chapter 5 begins with Mizuno stretching his arm, glad the school day is finally over, until he hears a popping sound that makes him worry. Wakao immediately asks if he's secretly an old man. He tells her to shove it, and the two drift into talking about how they didn't understand today's math lesson. Wakao says she's still reviewing it, then asks Mizuno if he's heading home yet. He says no and pulls out his phone. Wakao asks if he's playing a game. He says yes and launches into a rant about how the game works. Basically, it's about gathering materials to hunt monsters. I'm curious, what's the closest game you've played that reminds you of this? Let me know down in the comments. He's especially hyped about the new area that just got added and admits he's been dying to play it. At least, that's the excuse he gives Wakao. The truth? His mom's friends are coming over and he doesn't feel like sitting through their annoying questions. He tells Wakao she can stay if she wants to study, otherwise he'll leave. She says she doesn't mind the company. So Mizuno goes back to his game, nervous though, because even without eyes, he can feel Wakao's faceless stare drilling into his soul. His hands start shaking under the pressure. Then Wakao suddenly announces that he died in the game. Mizuno silently screams. He turns and asks if she needs something, but she apologizes, thinking she was too loud. She explains she was just wondering if what he's doing could be considered youthful. That leaves Mizuno confused. But Wakao keeps talking, saying that playing a game after school in an empty classroom gives her a kind of special feeling. Mizuno is left speechless until he realizes all that talk was just her roundabout way of asking if she could have a turn at the game. He thinks she should have just said that from the start, but tells her he doesn't mind letting her play. He gives her the basics of the game mechanics. Wakao, excited, says it's her first time playing a mobile game and that she's looking forward to it. Mizuno doesn't believe her until she actually starts playing like a total noob. Wakao complains about the lack of movement on the screen. Mizuno assumes she's probably stuck on a wall, but what matters is, yeah, she sucks. Still, she compliments the graphics and happily exclaims that she picked up an item. Mizuno can't help but smile seeing her enjoy herself. He directs her how to use it, and soon she finds more items. Mizuno tells her to craft a weapon, walking her through it just in time because now it's battle time. Mizuno thinks this should be easy, it's just a beginner mob. But Wakao, she's getting cooked. She panics, while Mizuno tries to calm her down and tells her to dodge. She asks what button that is. Mizuno, confused, tells her she literally just has to tap on the monster. Wakao calls the enemy formidable since she can't land a hit. She's about to admit defeat when Mizuno intervenes, tapping the screen for her. Wakao stares at him. The game ends. Mizuno wipes the sweat off his forehead, muttering about how awkward it is to play co-op on such a small screen. He praises Wakao for doing pretty well as a first-timer. But Wakao doesn't respond. Mizuno asks if she's okay, and that's when her full, flustered face appears again. Of course, he can't see it. He wonders what's wrong. Maybe she's mad he interfered, or maybe it's because he grabbed her hand. That must be it. But before he can think too hard, a teacher walks in and asks what's going on. And the chapter ends with the reveal. They kept playing until Wakao finally won. Chapter 6 kicks off with Mizuno partaking in a class assessment where he has to draw a detailed portrait of his partner. And of course, fate screws him over because his partner is none other than Wakao. Mizuno is absolutely doomed. I mean, how the hell is he supposed to draw something that doesn't exist? Compared to him, everyone else got it easy. This is hands down the worst possible class for him to share with Wakao. He decides to stall by drawing her body first. After sketching it, he honestly considers just turning it in like that, which would be 100% valid, of course. But the teacher notices and calls him out, saying he hasn't even started drawing. Mizuno feels humiliated as his teacher lectures him. Turns out the assignment focuses specifically on the face. The teacher even points out Wakao's facial features, telling him to pay close attention to their relative positions. Mizuno, completely lost, can't see any of it. Then comes the kicker. The teacher warns he'll lose points if the face isn't done properly. Shivers run down Mizuno's spine. He apologizes to Wakao, admitting he has no choice but to draw her face haphazardly. But then a thought hits him. What if she has defining features, like thick eyebrows, a mole, or something that makes her stand out? The more he thinks about it, the more frustrated he gets. Meanwhile, Wakao is on the other side, giggling to herself as she wonders how Mizuno will draw her. Though truth be told, she hasn't gotten anywhere either. Normally, she enjoys Mizuno's over-the-top expressions, but right now, his stressed-out face isn't really portrait material, so she decides to rely on her memories instead. Mizuno, curious, jolts as he sees her drawing, but her memory fails her too. She quickly realizes she has no idea what to put on paper. Mizuno notices her slump and frustration and wonders how far she's gotten. Back in Mizuno's mind, he's spiraling. How is he supposed to draw a faceless ghost? Then another thought slips in. Why does she only hide her face from him? He quickly shows that thought aside because time is running out. Wakao notices Mizuno finally about to start drawing, his expression dead serious. But in Mizuno's head, he's basically already given up. That is, until his teacher's earlier words echo back how important observation is in sketching. And with that, Mizuno decides to throw rational thinking out the window. He stares down Wakao with the intensity of his so-called awakened inner eye. Wakao, creeped out, hides behind her canvas and calls him out for staring. Mizuno apologizes, realizing he went too far. But behind that canvas, Wakao's full, flustered face is revealed again. By now, it's pretty obvious her face shows up whenever she's embarrassed. Back to the story. The teacher tells the class to finish up their work. Mizuno and Wakao both realize time's up. They just decide to put something on the page. Whatever happens, happens. When the teacher goes around evaluating their portraits, she can't help but comment, both of them are downright terrifying, especially the one with Mizuno's creepy smile. Chapter 7 begins with Wakao greeting Mizuno, except Mizuno looks like a gloomy mess. Wakao asks why he looks so down, internally noting he looks like the world is ending. Turns out the game they played last chapter is doing a collab with a convenience store. Buy 2 snacks, get a free folder. But no matter how hard Mizuno searched, they were sold out everywhere. He even woke up at 5 a.m. and checked 3 stores, still nothing. Wakao can't help but think it really does sound like a disaster. Usually, she enjoys Mizuno's many expressions, but his current one, not so much. Later, Wakao replies to a text from her mom who says she's coming to pick her up. At the same time, Mizuno suddenly screams. Wakao asks what's wrong, and he says he's going to be late for the bus. Surprised, Wakao asks if he even takes the bus to school. Mizuno explains that he usually doesn't, but today he's using it to get to a farther away convenience store. They say their goodbyes and split. After he leaves, Wakao recalls how distracted Mizuno seemed in class. Then she texts her mom asking if they can stop by a convenience store on the way home. Time passes, and when Wakao steps into the store, she sees the folders are already gone. She asks her mom if they can try another store. Her mom, surprised, says it's rare for Wakao to make a request like this and asks if she's looking for something. Wakao admits yes. At the next door, Wakao spots one last folder left on the shelf. She notes that it was worth checking, then wonders how Mizuno will react. She imagines him tearfully thanking her, then imagines him giving a shocked expression. She can't wait to see it in person. The store clerk, meanwhile, just stares at her, laughing to herself, confused. Suddenly, two boys walk in looking for the same folders, and Wakao physically jolts. Without hesitation, she grabs the last one and pays. Wakao is excited to give it to Mizuno tomorrow, but as she steps outside, she unexpectedly runs into him. Both are shocked. Mizuno points out it's their first time meeting outside school. Wakao, hiding the folder behind her, nervously asks if he found what he was looking for. He says no, then rushes into the store while Wakao stays outside. Seconds later, Mizuno walks out again, looking utterly defeated, only to find Wakao still waiting there. She stammers before handing him the folder, saying it came with the snacks she bought. Mizuno is stunned, trembling as he asks if she's really okay giving it to him. She says yes. Mizuno is floored, and Wakao is secretly pleased. He thanks her with a huge smile, saying he'll treasure it forever. Wakao, flustered, says she's glad he's happy, but she needs to go since her mom is waiting. Mizuno insists on at least paying for her snacks, but she brushes it off, saying she was planning to buy them anyway. Clearly a lie. Back in the car, her mom asks if she found what she was looking for. Wakao says yes. Her mom assumes she meant the snacks, but Wakao corrects her. No, it wasn't the snacks. Meanwhile, Mizuno is outside the store, literally dancing with joy, and as Wakao watches him from the car, her face is revealed once again, beet red and flustered. She internally mutters that Mizuno is unfair. Mizuno, however, snaps back to reality and realizes he just missed his chance to see Wakao's mom's face. Chapter 8 begins with Wakao commenting on how sunny the weather is. Mizuno, fanning himself, complains about how suffocating his uniform feels and says he can't wait to start wearing the summer ones. Wakao agrees. Then, out of nowhere, Wakao changes the subject. She suggests they tell each other ghost stories. Mizuno immediately feels this is a bad idea, but Wakao launches into a rant about how much she loves ghost stories and urban legends. After all, school legends are a quintessential youth experience. Mizuno reminds her about the creepy ghost story she told him back in Chapter 1. Wakao then asks if he likes horror. Turns out Mizuno doesn't. For some reason, though, he can't stop watching horror stuff, even though he gets traumatized every time. Wakao tells him it's normal to be scared by the things he's seen. Of course, Mizuno also thinks Wakao's own face is terrifying, not that he can say that out loud. Wakao proposes they turn it into a little competition, since they've got time before class starts. Mizuno agrees, though he admits he doesn't have many stories. Wakao assures him it's fine, they can just kill time, and while they're at it, rate each other's stories from 1 to 10. She decides to go first. Her story: it happened at our school to a certain female student. One night, she realized she had forgotten something and went back. The school was dark and completely empty. Wanting to hurry home, she rushed toward her classroom, only to hear a voice coming from inside. Curious, she peeked in and saw a girl she'd never seen before. The girl had long, unkempt hair and was muttering something while staring down at a desk. When the student stepped closer, the girl whispered, "I wanted to graduate too." But in the blink of an eye, she vanished. Wakao speculates that maybe due to misfortune, the girl couldn't graduate and no one knows who she was. Mizuno stares at her blankly and asks if that's it. She says yes. Mizuno critiques her story, saying it sounds made up and the long-hair girl trope is overused. He gives it a 3 out of 10. Wakao pouts, saying he's strict. Mizuno insists it just lacked substance. Plus, he isn't that much of a horror lightweight. But then he suddenly freezes. With a horrified expression, Mizuno asks Wakao if she was the girl in her story because he remembers finding salt on his desk once. Wakao gives him an ambiguous response. Terrified, Mizuno immediately bumps up her score to an 8, mostly because he doesn't want to risk being cursed. Wakao cheers at her improvement. Mizuno mutters that her story gave him chills, and she smugly says at least it helped cool him down from the heat. Then she tells him it's his turn. Mizuno reluctantly begins. His story: when he was younger, his dad gave him an old camera. Ecstatic, Mizuno took tons of photos. One day, while outside, he spotted a giant beetle and snapped a picture. Later, he proudly showed the photo to his dad. His dad praised it, but also asked him, "Who's the little girl you were playing with?" Mizuno had been alone. Ever since then, he never looked at that picture again, and he never used that camera either. Wakao admits that's unnerving, then teases him, saying he seems to attract strange things: ghosts, yokai, oddities. After all, just look at who he spends his time with. Mizuno screams, insisting that her earlier story really was true. Wakao laughs, admitting his story was scary, but since he never actually looked at the picture, she gives it a 6 out of 10. Mizuno accepts the rating. Just then, another student calls Wakao over for committee duties. As she leaves, she says they'll continue their contest later. Left alone, Mizuno wonders if Wakao has any connection to the faceless ghosts from old myths. But yokai and ghosts don't exist, right? Then he gets a dumb realization. Could Wakao actually be some crazy old granny? He blurts it out before laughing at himself, embarrassed that such nonsense even crossed his mind. Unbeknownst to him, Wakao overhears and finds the idea intriguing. Her full face is revealed again, but this time she's pouting angrily. Mizuno trembles, realizing she heard what he said, and in a panic, he internally gives her story a full 10 out of 10 on the horror scale. And that's how the chapter ends. Whoa, you actually made it this far into the video? Thanks! Since you're already here, why not help your boy out and hit that like button? It really helps a lot. Okay, enough yapping, back to the video. Chapter 9 begins with a teacher telling the class that since their usual instructor is absent, they'll just be filling out a Japanese history printout. Anyone who finishes early can use the rest of the class time to study. Cut to Mizuno. He's already done with the printout and is now lying on his desk, bored out of his mind. He's got nothing else to study, and of all people, the substitute teacher today is Enokita, a man notorious for being strict, with a glare so sharp it feels like time freezes when he looks at you. As Mizuno's mind drifts, he starts doodling and realizes his sketch of Enokita is actually pretty good. It'd be a shame to just erase it. But before he can admire it for long, Wakao suddenly notices and asks if he drew Enokita. Mizuno panics, slams the notebook shut, and tells her not to look. She insists it's a good drawing, but he's just too embarrassed. To even the score, Wakao decides to draw something herself. Mizuno tries to stop her, but curiosity wins. And when she's done, her drawing of Enokita puts his to shame. Mizuno admits he's impressed, remembering how good she was back in art class. Wakao brushes it off, saying she's not that good. Then Mizuno gets an idea. He scribbles something and passes the paper to Wakao. She looks at it and asks, "Is this picture Shiritori?" He nods. Mizuno explains he used to play it during class back in middle school, and the thrill of keeping it hidden from the teacher made it way more fun. For anyone who doesn't know, picture Shiritori is like normal Shiritori, but instead of words, you take turns drawing pictures. Each new picture has to start with the last syllable of the previous one. Wakao teases Mizuno, saying she didn't think he had such a mischievous side. Mizuno tells her not to make it sound weird like he's some kind of pervert. But surprisingly, she agrees to play. Time passes, and soon Mizuno notices something odd. Every drawing Wakao makes is just faces. At first, he thinks it's a coincidence, but no, she's only drawing faces. He wonders if it's some kind of hidden hint about her own face, but quickly shakes off the thought. When it's her turn, Mizuno decides to draw tapioca. The problem is, he's never actually tried it before, and his drawing skills are questionable. Wakao stares at it, trying to decode what it is. She sees some kind of container, some black dots inside, and what looks like a narrow tube sticking out. She pieces it together and confidently draws a deer. Mizuno is absolutely baffled. She was supposed to draw something starting with ta. Turns out she thought his drawing was tanishi, pond snails, and so she drew shika, deer, to continue the chain. Mizuno is left speechless, wondering if she's never heard of tapioca or if his drawing really sucked that badly. Before they can sort it out, the teacher announces it's time to hand in the printouts. Mizuno jolts in panic. He completely forgot to erase his Enokita doodle. And sure enough, when he hands it in, Enokita himself spots the drawing. The man is furious. Mizuno is roasted on the spot, while Wakao quietly watches. Yep, bro is cooked. When Mizuno returns to his seat, he looks like he's aged 70 years in just 10 minutes. He swears he never imagined his doodle would be mistaken for pond snails. Then he asks why Wakao only drew faces. She calmly replies that it's because faces are the one thing she's good at drawing. Mizuno is shocked. That's all it was? Wakao then asks what he thought the reason was, but Mizuno dodges, saying he needs to check tomorrow's schedule. She teases that the answer was obvious. Before leaving, Wakao asks if she can keep the paper. Mizuno says sure. She admits this was her first time playing picture Shiritori with a friend, and she wants to keep it as a memento. Mizuno smiles, saying they should play again sometime. Wakao agrees, but reminds him to erase his doodles next time. Mizuno swears there's no way he'd ever forget that scolding. The two say goodbye, and Mizuno heads out. Wakao, now alone, rests her head on the desk, her full face revealed again, smiling softly. Meanwhile, Mizuno is still bothered that his tapioca was mistaken for pond snails and resolves to practice drawing more. And that's how Chapter 9 wraps up. Chapter 10 kicks off with Mizuno lying on his bed staring at his phone. He realizes it's already 1 in the morning, and he's been doom-scrolling Twitter, looking at random pictures he doesn't even care about. But then it hits him. What would happen if he took a picture of Wakao? Since he's the only one who sees her as faceless, wouldn't a photo come out normal? Honestly, I can't believe it took him 10 chapters to figure this out. Mizuno immediately starts hyping himself up like he just cracked the code of the universe. Scene shifts, and he's now asking Wakao if he can take her picture. She shuts it down instantly, saying he sounds suspicious. Mizuno panics, swearing he has no ulterior motives, but Wakao just points out that his face says otherwise. Mizuno considers giving up. Yeah, as if. Plan B, he'll make her think he's taking a photo of something else, and then, boom, she just happens to be in the frame. Checkmate. He even apologizes to Wakao in his head, promising to delete the evidence afterward. So, Operation Sneaky Photo begins. Mizuno loudly comments on how pretty the sky looks and says he'll take a picture of it. Wakao, already suspicious, turns her head away. Strike 1. Next, Mizuno thinks he's a genius. If he takes the shot from the classroom entrance, she'll never suspect a thing. But when he lines up the picture, someone walks in and completely blocks the view. Now Mizuno's stuck staring at a random dude's belly. He's losing it. Frustrated, he comes up with Plan C, snap Wakao's photo from her blind spot. But of course, from that angle, he can't even see her. At this point, he realizes all that big brain energy he had last night must be saving itself for another 10 chapters. Cut to Wakao, who notices Mizuno sulking on the floor behind her. She sees his phone and how quickly he hides it and pieces it together. She asks if he really wants a picture that badly. Mizuno, gloomy and defeated, admits yes. So Wakao takes his phone and takes the picture herself. Mizuno is stunned. That's all it took? But when he looks at the photo, it's just him making a goofy face. He yells that she tricked him, but Wakao fires back. He asked for a picture and she gave him one. Then she knew from the start he had no bad intentions. Mizuno, still flustered, asks why she refused in the first place. Wakao leans in close, her face fully revealed, and whispers in his ear, "Because it's embarrassing." Mizuno short-circuits, and before he can respond, Wakao bolts out of the room. Mizuno then decides to let the photo idea go for the day. Later that night, back on his bed, Mizuno groans about how much time he wasted today. Remembering Wakao's prank photo, he goes to delete it, but notices a video he doesn't remember taking. Turns out he must have hit record right before Wakao snapped the shot. His heart pounds. Finally, this could be it. Surely on video, her face will show up. But no, even in photos, even in video, Wakao is still a faceless ghost. Mizuno collapses in defeat once again. And that's how Chapter 10 ends, with Mizuno taking an L from both technology and fate. Chapter 11 starts with a weather forecaster announcing that temperatures in Japan are going to keep climbing, especially in the east and west. Their advice? Switch to short sleeves and breathable clothes. We then see Wakao, already ahead of the trend, stylishly rocking her summer uniform. While walking outside, she notes how hot it is, a clear sign summer has arrived. She also notices everyone else had the same idea, swapping long sleeves for cooler outfits. That's when she overhears two male students talking. One of them is hyped about summer uniforms, saying the heat has set free body parts that were hidden before, making girls look like a whole new experience. Wakao pauses on that. A whole new light, huh? Then she wonders if Mizuno will react the same way. He's terrible at hiding his emotions. Determined, she swears she'll make him react. The two guys even compliment Wakao as she fires herself up in the background. But here's the problem. She has no idea how to actually do it. Even with everyone's excitement, pulling this off won't be easy. She tries striking a casual pose in the street, but immediately jolts when she realizes someone's watching. Embarrassed, she bows and flees. The bystander just thinks she's cute. Now red-faced, Wakao admits to herself she probably shouldn't be posing in the middle of town. But then she wonders, what exactly makes men's hearts skip? If you like what you're seeing, you'll literally make my heart skip if you like and subscribe. Back to her mission, Wakao notices a girl nearby dressed boldly, rocking a shorter skirt. Wakao quickly realizes that's way too much for her. Then she second-guesses herself. Maybe Mizuno doesn't even care about summer uniforms. She imagines him reacting with complete indifference. Still, deep down, she believes he'll react the way she hopes, maybe even more. Meanwhile, that bold girl and her friend compliment Wakao, calling her a cool-toned beauty. Cut to school. Wakao notices Mizuno hasn't arrived yet. She drops her bag on her desk, declares she's putting it all on the line, and believes in her natural charm. Then she notices the class's AC is on and goes to close the classroom window, but struggles. It feels stuck. Suddenly, another hand reaches out and slams it shut with ease. It's Mizuno. Wakao freezes, not sure what face she's making. Mizuno greets her casually, while she turns away, blushing with her full face revealed, thinking internally, "So that's your play, huh?" Mizuno, on the other hand, is stunned by Wakao in her summer uniform. Not just that, he's shocked she can actually feel the temperature, which makes him think she might actually be a human. Wakao, still flustered, tells him, "Well played." Mizuno, confused, apologizes if he did something wrong. Meanwhile, a new female classmate is shown lying on her desk, quietly watching Mizuno and Wakao. She thinks about how close the two of them are and how lucky they seem. And with that, Volume 1 ends. Wow, finally done. As of now, only Volume 1 has been translated, so it'll be a wait before Part 2. Honestly, this was a nice short manga. Thank God. I can't wait to see how Mizuno and Wakao's relationship grows in the next volume. And I'm pretty sure this new character is going to be a love rival for Wakao. Let me know your thoughts on the manga, and don't forget to like and subscribe. These videos take a lot of time and effort to make. Thanks for watching, and goodbye for now.